No doubt many of us were up late. Fortitude. We're expecting a guest. I saw somebody pulling in out there, so I'm gonna trust that our guest is on. Roll call. Let's see. Ben,
Present.
Tom,
Present, here.
Scotland. Herb, present, and Betsy. And Counselor Cook.
Here.
And Peter. You're here. All here. Kevin. Oh, Kevin, sorry.
Kind of hiding.
And from the staff, we have Peter Britz and Stephanie Secord. I wanted to spend the bulk of tonight talking about solar arrays on landfills, and we have David Sharples, who should be here, confirmed that he was going to be here at any rate, to talk about their project. And discuss that maybe look at the parallels to Jones Avenue, and I sent you some information on Jones Avenue. I think it's important to remember that number one, our city's climate action plan, which we've adopted, calls for planning, designing, and building solar arrays of sufficient generating capacity to power municipal buildings, either distributed across roofs, parking lots, or aggregated into one site. So this would be the aggregated into one site look at things. There's a lot of hoops to jump over for a project like that. Exeter's took 4 years, I think. I was looking at their bond issue, it was 1.2%. So obviously it was from a different era. But there's the regulatory aspect of it. You know, the DES controls that disposition of that site. There's the fact that there's an existing policy that that landfill be used for passive recreation, so it would be change in use. The council could make that change if they wanted to, if we recommended, but we'd have to discuss it, have it go through hearings. And then late last week, Peter Britz was digging into the history of DES and that site. And there was some conversation about, is it up to current modern standards of landfill? So that raises the possibility that if we put it into use for anything, there may be follow-on consequences. So that's the regulatory. Then there's the financial. Do we want to, some towns are having a developer put a solar array in and they just get a lease. Other towns are opting to issue a bond and own it. If you bond for it, those bonds theoretically are backed by revenue. So that there's that whole aspect of it. And then there's the question of, can it be behind the meter, or would it have to be some kind of power purchase agreement? Obviously, if it's behind the meter, we get a net metering benefit. And according to the Google Maps, it's half a mile from the high school. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if that's possible to be behind the meter or not. So there's that whole set of questions. But we'll take all these up, I hope, after we hear from David. You didn't see anybody.
I didn't, I went and looked.
Okay.
You told him it was in here, not council chambers, right? I peeked in there, but I didn't see anybody.
Yeah, he said he looked it up on the website.
Okay.
Counselor, I just had a question, like, so our role in this would be like you said, recommending, kind of come up with the details like you just described and then recommend to the council?
I think it would be the first step would be to recommend to the council if we think it's feasible, to us, recommend that the council ask for a look into it.
Okay.
And I think obviously it's a multi-year endeavor. And we would need a commitment of staff support. And those are all, to be explored.
Yeah.
But going back to our goals that we set for ourselves, some kind of community solar project has always been in our thinking. Now, it may be more practical to do rooftops. But you wouldn't have the scale either.
Right.
So. But or maybe both. And I think there's the possibility that there are people in the community who feel strongly it should be recreation area. I don't know. I know that study was done a long time ago, but there was public input at that time. So those are all the facets of it. But I think the first, I thought we would sort of explore what it took in a actual use case. See what we learn from that. And then see if we think that it's worth having the council ask for more information and more feasibility analysis.
Counselor, I think just as a addition to what you mentioned about the high school being half a mile distance, the indoor pool is there too.
Yeah.
So they could both be, if we did it behind the meter, they could both be supplied with some electricity.
Yeah, and I would assume that's a big energy. Since we have time now, Peter, maybe you should just fill us in on everybody in on our conversation of Friday.
Yeah, I mean,
You dug through the
I
files.
think you covered it pretty well. The biggest thing is that what my understanding is when they went to DES and they didn't go to DES to put solar panels on, they went to DES to do passive recreation. DES said that you'd have to do work to bring it up to modern standards.
Excuse me, who is the they that they
Public
said?
Works.
Public Works, okay.
Yeah. So they that they're concerned about that because that could be a huge expense if we had to do a lot of work to secure the site and change the way, it was I don't know when it was capped, but quite a long time ago, and kind of have a sense of what's going on there. There's ash that's in a big baggie, and then there's landfill waste that's got like a clay layer. And modern standards would be a permeable membrane over the site. The baggie, maybe they want to, I don't know what level they want to look at that. They'd want to look at the structural component, I'm sure, or what the solar would require. But one of the concerns is that, just bringing it up might open the door. So we're trying to explore with them. Director of Public Works wants to provide better access around the site for people. And so they're going to sort of maybe feel around and see if there's any concern with moving the fence. They got to update the fence and see what kind of feedback they get from that. So we might get a better sense just testing the water there.
Yep.
See what DES says, but if it was a full-blown upgrade to modern standards, I'm sure that would be a huge expense.
I wonder if one of the criteria for that was penetration of the ground, but it looks like
It
they did
wasn't
an
for
extra
passive
was,
recreation because I didn't think there was any plan for that.
if you did fencing or the trail erodes the surface, whereas it looked like what the Exeter system did was no ground penetration.
Yep.
They did a ballasted system with,
I think you could do
Rocks.
that. I think you could have a pretty minimal impact.
yeah,
So it's a matter of what, DES is gonna require what they require.
Yeah.
Figuring that out is sort of the big question. Like the other questions you raised, but it's not insignificant.
Like,
Okay.
could you argue that the cover of the surface with the solar array and guttering could actually mitigate impacts? I'd be curious about that too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I was thinking the same thing. It's like another cap.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen a solar on a landfill and they basically had racks and concrete blocks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's no penetration, but
Mhm.
maybe that weight is an issue. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I think the other thing that you raised is that the master plan that was done for that was for passive recreation. I was tangentially involved in that process. There was a lot of people in the neighborhood that didn't want to see really even that happening there, let alone other activities. So you may open up the neighborhood, can of worms concern with there too. Just to be aware of it, not that we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's another issue that could come up.
Yeah.
Reduce it because you would change the use to limit
it's just-
passive recreation,
Hmm.
right?
Right,
Potentially.
they could be happy about that.
And Counselor, this was like back in the late summer, I dug this up. It was a fact sheet from DES on putting solar arrays on closed solid waste landfills. So it's a 2 or 3 page white paper with
Mhm.
links to different sites within DES. That gives you some good guidance.
Mhm.
I did read it, study it a month ago, and I've got everything.
I know they're typically supportive, they want to see it happen. EPA, the same thing on Superfund sites. They want to see it happen and they're doing it places. So I don't know what that level of study involves. And I think that's where the concern is
Mhm.
what do we need to do to figure that out?
Peter, I called you and left a message about, is there a document, a closure document, when they close this landfill? There must be a document documenting when it was closed, under what conditions and so forth. Is
I'm
that
sure we have it.
available?
I don't have that.
Because I left a message a couple of times for you to, because I was talking to the
I
guy
had-
from Rivers Energy and
I'll
they,
get back to you, but
that's what they asked me to tell you, to ask for.
okay.
And also any trails that are, trails that are going through that area or around that area. So we know where things are.
Yeah, I think
Is
the
there a
master,
map for that? Yeah.
the master
Master
plan
plan
had a
has that.
That has it, the
speculative.
master plan has it in there? Okay.
Counselor.
I don't see the reason why we can't do both. We can't consider passive recreation and an array on this site because, I mean, there's a lot of wooded area
Yeah.
where you could consider for passive recreation instead of
Yeah.
thinking of that area as you don't want to clear cut. So,
Or you could have a path outside the fence.
That's kind of the way it's set up now, right? I mean, where the fence is now would be where we would want the
That's
fence,
right.
right? And the grass is the landfill where the,
Right. I mean, you wouldn't have to even take up the entire landfill with the solar. You could have the path in the sunny grass area around around, or you could preserve part of it. It's what, 9.6 acres? did we
Yeah, it's
say?
big.
So it's enough room that you could do a decent sized solar array and passive recreation all in the same space. Without, so people could play frisbee or sled. I guess people used to like to go sledding there.
been there sledding.
So, yeah. It's a great southern exposure too. So.
Yeah.
Yes, but it also has some spectacular views.
Yep.
So.
Could offer free electric boat charging for our sustainable fishermen.
Yeah. there you
Dane's
go.
been putting in actually quite a bit of infrastructure for electric charging for lobster boats. And
Do they have electric lobster boats now?
yeah,
I haven't seen-
they have been pilot testing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. I've been waiting for that. I haven't seen it.
I'm on the wait list for electric outboard, a 70 to 80 horsepower electric. Yeah. There you go. We've got to figure it out. It's gonna be fine.
I have a 1.5 horsepower. It's
Oh.
wonderfully quiet.
Electric?
Yeah.
Nice.
That smell.
No smell,
You can get close.
no
to the fish.
winterizing. Yeah, I think that's. Could we do both uses? I think it's all imagining at this point.
Do we have to be concerned about the proposed development at the radio station there? as impeding access in any way? Or
No, it's totally different roads.
Yeah.
it is, okay. Great,
This would be all off of Jones Ave and that's all off of Route 1.
okay.
If you go down to the bottom of the.
Oh,
landfill,
Jones
the
Ave
water is
versus
close.
Route 1.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
got
very
you.
close by
Yeah,
water, but by land.
by land, it's different access by Jones Ave. Great.
Right. Yeah, if you, between the last couple of houses on Jones Avenue and the Elks,
Yep,
there's a turn in
right there. Oh, okay, gotcha.
called Incinerator Road. um,
Very welcoming.
Which used to lead to the incinerator. And it now leads to the fence with the sign that I put the picture in. Slide. But it's worth going out there and checking it out.
Mhm.
It's an amazing piece of property.
Can't bring your dog not on a leash anymore, though.
No, you have to have a leash.
Bring them along,
Yes.
keep them on a leash.
Some of the nicest vernal pools in the city are in that trail network. You'll see it. Well, maybe not right now because it's so dry, but when it's wet. Really nice vernal pools.
Yeah.
Really loud in the spring.
Peepers?
Yeah.
That's good. I've heard them.
The kids go back there for forest kids after school. Yeah.
You know, if the council voted to look into feasibility, there are developers like Revision who would happily consult with us. I think there's a lot of technical questions that we'd need help with, and ultimately, there are a lot of good solar developers out there. And it should be, if we were to move ahead with anything, it would absolutely have to be a competitive process. But in terms of what's possible, what's doable, you know, Revision has done quite a number around the state, as have others. So,
You don't have to put a consultant through a competitive process as well.
What's the part with DES? Is
Good
that
question.
something we'd have to staff? Because Revision can make a quote, any solar company can make a quote on a piece of land with a ballasted system of a certain size. But for the precursor, like if we were able to utilize that property, like what sort of research needs to be done with DES, and is that done by the town, or do we need?
Yeah, it would be the
additional
city.
resources?
Beginning with DES to see what they would need and how far they need to take it in terms of upgrades.
Okay, so that'd be the process before a competitive RFP.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think you need to find that out. If you were gonna get the go-ahead to do something there, that would be the next step.
yeah, I think there's a lot of the technical questions that would it be behind the meter, would not be behind the meter? What would the permitting process look like? That was, I was hoping to have David here, because I was gonna see if we could all find out what they went through and whether they had to upgrade their landfill in any way. So. Maybe he stayed up till 3 a.m.
Or had 3 margaritas?
Yeah. Cross the threshold.
Peter, maybe after we ask those questions, what would be the next step? We evaluate whether or not you
Well,
have the bandwidth. to do
before we
this.
even ask the questions, we want to decide we want to ask the questions. That's the concern. It's just opening that door is like opening Pandora's box. So we want to make sure there's
Yeah.
support to even go there before we go there.
What's the risk of,
The risk is DES says, oh yeah, that landfill. Yeah, you got to go do all these things, you know.
regardless of whether to
Regardless
do
of-
any
yeah,
development,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
then it becomes more of a liability for.
How does that work though? Like, it was legally closed.
Yeah.
How is asking questions?
It's like bringing in
setting
an
it-
inspector into your house.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you think,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
it's-
want to speculate on that. I'm
yeah,
just saying that's a concern.
I agree with Betsy's comment. I mean, we need to know what the conditions were when it was closed, what they said at the time when it was closed. And we need to hold them to that, what they said back then. say.
Well, things have
say-
changed since back then.
Well,
That's
yes,
the
of
thing.
course, and we're not closing
That's what
a
I'm
new
saying.
landfill either, you know, it's already there, it's been closed.
But
it's-
you're
it's Signed
using-
up,
You're changing the use, so you're asking to use it in a different way.
maybe, yeah.
But maybe you're mitigating some of the impacts
Yeah.
that would require the upgrades too. It's just like.
Public
it's-
access wasn't allowed with that closure. So whatever the report said, it was a closed landfill with. a
Are you
fence
saying the
keep people out.
trails that are going there are not allowed?
Not allowed without a new approval by DES.
Well, we have trails now.
No.
In there,
Oh, they're not, no
Wood-
trails
The
now?
wooded trails are fine.
I thought
it's
the.
gated off and no access is.
Yeah.
The committee recommended passive use and trails. DES said you need a new kind of permit for that. And there it stopped.
What, back
And
then,
then
when,
the-
when it was
yes.
closed, they said
That's
this?
2015.
Okay, so,
The committee was.
so. What I heard was that it's being used for cross-country training for high school? Is not
That's-
true?
That's outside. There's a
Outside the
central
fence.
Oh, it's outside
And
the
then there's the
fence.
whole open space area. So there's about 10
Okay.
acres of fenced area
Yeah.
and about, I don't know, 50 or more acres.
I see,
of open
okay,
space.
that's outside.
That
the
has
fence.
wood chip trails that the cross-country
Okay,
team
so
uses.
what we're talking about here is what's inside the fence and not outside.
Right.
So right now,
Just inside the fenced in areas. where
there's nothing going up.
It's the ideal location because there's no trees. It's southern.
Yeah.
Makes sense from all that standpoint.
So we can't do hypothetical questions like we all do when we go to the town office for. We're thinking about considering the possibility of maybe,
I'm
I'm
not-
not giving you my
I-
address.
Uh,
I'm gonna do it to my house. We
I'm
couldn't
just
do that.
saying
for
what
DES.
is,
Yeah.
is likely to happen, having dealt with DES on a whole different, all their different departments.
Mm.
They are very thorough. And they should be.
They should,
you know,
yeah, absolutely.
We need to proceed with caution.
All right, so we wait to hear from town of Exeter of their experience.
Yes. I think
Direct
that's a-
correlation to what we're trying
There,
to do.
there might be some real good tie-ins. And I know this is a good site and I agree that it's a good site, but I also think it'd be worth exploring other opportunities like rooftops, but Counselor Tabor and I, at least I mentioned it, is we have all these areas in town with massive power line corridors that are upland, they're not wetlands, and might be a really good fit for solar if you can put solar under a power line. You can't.
Sorry.
I know.
That's the rules.
Lots of rules.
It's-
Facility
Is it
people,
just
now
for
it's bring-
accessibility,
Yes.
I would assume.
Is there a certain distance, setback distance?
How's the community
Swing and
campus?
sag and
Swing and
depends on
sag.
everything you got there.
But it's not just the 15-foot clearance.
Hold
like the
that
trees.
Right, sometimes you can do underbuild, put things that are lower on the poles that are lower, like you'll see cable or telecom or whatnot.
Yeah.
But.
But not.
It saves you
I
the
don't know if you
sheep,
do that.
the sheep that need to, and the goats.
sheep. They're,
You don't
they're,
have to mow.
they're clearing, yes.
Do we know how big the array was that this pro forma is for?
1.77.
7.7?
megawatts.
1.769.
For what it's worth, the hosting capacity map looks like you can fit maybe 2 to 3 megawatts in that area without significant upgrade. So that's potentially good news for the interconnection costs.
2 to 3 megawatts on the landfill property?
In the fenced in area.
Oh, wow.
Hosting
Wow.
capacity map has it colored orange, which on the legend is 2 to 3 megawatts of capacity.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, let's do it.
Does it show the,
Ben's got
a nearby
maps.
interconnect?
Sorry,
Does it show where the interconnect would be?
not on this map.
But it says it's possible. Or you
Yeah,
just-
that's the whole point, to try and show folks where it's better or worse to interconnect, and so it's okay. Subject to study, of course.
Council?
Community campus as a site. Have we looked at the community campus building yet?
No, I don't think all the buildings have been explored in that kind of detail.
A lot of roof. what I'm
Yeah, it's
thinking.
not a roof. It's close to energy usage.
Mhm.
You know, that's why roofs are, seems like good places to start. Not as big and
What's the relation to the DPW facilities in the back athletic fields? Does it like kitty corner there?
they're on this, they're adjacent.
They're adjacent,
So
okay.
the lot, it's not one lot, but they basically connect.
Yeah,
themselves
but back by the athletic fields.
all the way down to the campus. Yep, through the athletic fields, all the way to the campus.
Okay.
Yep. There's a big stormwater system pond below there. Well, there's a treatment system stormwater system. And then a pond stormwater system, which is older. And then the ball fields also has some stormwater stuff, and then the ball fields, then the woods. Have a lot of wetlands, and then the campus, so it all kind of connects. And the roof of the DPW building, I think would be worth looking at. That's a pretty big roof area.
And that's easy to put behind the meter.
I think that would be easier. City Hall would be a challenge because there's been issues with the roof here.
The DPW, you said that when the extension happened or is happening, it was made to be solar ready, right?
That's what they said when they were building, when they told me they were gonna try to make it solar ready. But
So it
then
wasn't
I
like
don't think
value
that-
engineered to not
I-
support the weight.
I
of
don't
panels.
think that in the new, you're talking about the new additions they're
Yeah.
putting on, they're proposing. I don't think they have the right aspect though to be good. I think the existing roof has a better aspect. It could be, have to be supported probably, but that's better. Orientation.
I think of the rooftops. How would we put those into the capital improvement plan? Would we do those over a sequence of years? Would we try to do one large project?
I'm sure you can do it different ways, but I know at Madbury, they did a power purchase agreement behind the meter, so they basically structured it that energy would pay for they'd pay for that energy rather than paying for the solar. So they didn't need a capital improvement item. They didn't need a budget item.
Hmm.
They were just paying utility bills, basically. Through a
Exeter
contract.
Exeter also has solar at the transfer station. Well, they have a small array at their transfer station.
Different than the landfill.
Yeah, so that's always something we could consider as well
Sure.
in the transfer station area itself, not just on the roof.
Yeah, and I know the roof of the Foundry Garage. I talked to Dave Allen when they were building it, tried to get them to put solar in there. We never had the budget, but he said it was ready for it. He had a company that was ready to do it. Could have done it.
Hmm.
So there's other places it could be done.
There was this really cool project I saw in Kansas City. The parking garage at the airport. They hung solar panels because of the sight lines on the side of the building from, each level at an angle because it was the best solar capture there. So, and they just kind of look like they're integrated in the building. You don't really notice them because they're kind of just hanging at the side. So that's also something to consider if we have a building that doesn't have the best structural support at the top, but where we could hang them on the side of the building. Got it.
Didn't know you could do that.
I had pictures.
And I was, yeah, and Peter and I had also talked about the Great Bog, but that's where we get into the power line corridor, right?
Yeah, there is a northern portion that's upland, but it's owned by Fishing Games portion. In the southern portions, there is some upland, but it's pretty nice habitat. That's why I thought the power lines would be so great, but be off to the side, but they only clear where they need to, and it's probably not allowed in that cleared area.
And one other site recommendation at the skate park, they really want a pavilion space. Can we do a solar pavilion? Instead of just a standard pavilion and then therefore generate some electricity for the light usage.
Sure they could.
Is the pavilion in the capital plan or is that just
I think maybe down the road, but
Years out.
yeah, it was a few $100,000. I seem to remember at one point, but I don't know what it would be now.
If you do the roof for the pavilion and do solar at the same time, it integrates into the project costs.
Yeah.
For the rebate.
Right.
So it makes sense to do roof and solar at the same time.
Eventually, they're doing a new bathhouse, right, over the pools. Isn't that it?
someday?
Someday.
That one keeps getting pushed.
There's a new
out.
pump house. You got the new pump house, right?
Yeah.
That's what
That was a
built this
must.
past summer. Yeah. Bathhouse is really looking really.
well,
on
it
its
was
Lotus Lakes.
it's built in the Depression.
It has that look about it.
Yeah. It's rudimentary. I think it was a WPA project.
Oh, you're
Really?
serious.
The city
Oh
police.
my goodness. Oh,
Well, I guess I have to declare David missing in action. That's too bad. I sent an email and haven't heard anything.
So there's just another opportunity that's happening with solar collapsible panels that people can mount on their balconies for renters. And it's being used a lot in Germany now, that people are just hanging it right on
Yep.
their balconies.
Yeah.
And plugging it in, and basically they can take it down, move it wherever they are. So it's something that might be coming at some point, that might be an interesting thing for people who are renting property and have a place to hang this thing. It's basically just attaches to the balcony mounting railing and stuff, so. And if
Yeah.
everybody does it, small amount, but.
And they
you know.
just plug it into their,
Yeah,
Take it out.
I think they can just plug it in. I gotta find out more about how they do it, but it seems to be, from what I heard, very simple to do. So
that's a great idea.
I guess you're just using that, whatever you're using in your apartment.
Right, whatever load is drawing closest to it.
Yeah.
That's where the power goes.
Because I mean, a lot of renters say, you know, I can't do solar, I can't do this or that because I'm just renting. Well, this is something you can do. And it can't be that expensive. I think I saw it was like $100 or something like that.
Hmm.
Is that sold? Do you know, Peter, if that's sold here in the United States?
That I don't know. I know it's sold a
Curious
lot in
to-
Germany, but I gotta find out. That's what I'm
People
trying
have
to find
started.
out. Yeah.
Trying to use something like that.
Yeah.
Has anyone here ever used a solar generator? Seen these backup generators that are just solar panels? I'm curious how well they
And they
work.
charge up a battery.
Yeah.
A Patriot or something like that.
Yeah.
Jackery is one. My brother uses it. He's got one of those Sprinter vans and he's all excited about the Jackery thing. Yeah, there's a lot of applications now.
Well, you know, if we ever wanted to have some kind of fund we built up, Community Power allows them to charge a small increment, you know, 1/10 of a cent or 1/4 of a cent or something on the rates. Which we would have to go through a public process and see if the community was good with that, and then you could have a fund to buy panels or anything like that.
They did cover that at the annual meeting, and I guess the way that they're doing it now is you pick one of the current rates to add to. So it's not so if there's 4 now, you wouldn't be a 5th rate. You would pick whichever one you want to put your adder on top of. And I think there were 4 towns that were doing it, and every one of them put it on their default rate, which Peter and I agreed we're not doing here.
What wasn't their
But-
default rate above like our default? Their default rate was.
Yeah, it might have been the next,
Granite
like
Plus
Granite
or-
Plus.
Right.
But if you chose another one, it seems like if it's not a default, it would be simpler to get through, right?
Right.
Then you just make
Because
it
you're
clear.
opting into
Right.
whatever that
Yeah.
is, yeah.
You wouldn't raise a whole lot of money because there's not a lot of.
Right.
opt-ins to begin with.
Yeah. Right, the
Not
towns that
until
were
we get
raising
their
money
line
were.
bill.
Always fee under the $10.
And everybody's gonna be doing it.
Well, I think here we would get ourselves in trouble. If, for whatever it is, it just, I don't know, I mean, who decides that everybody should be put on this rate?
Right.
And then what do we do with the money, like?
Right.
I just think in Portsmouth, that would be a tough sell.
This year,
Lucky block.
especially.
Especially.
Yeah, potential, well, opting out or finding out that this is happening and they had no, like right now, I think a lot of people have no idea. And then when you tell them and they're saving money, they're like, oh, thanks. But now if you're putting money in a fund and
Right.
Just seems like a different message that would be more of a challenge.
Without full transparency.
Right.
Uh,
And I think by the time we got that, we just,
But the opposite, putting it on a different higher rate, you could use it as kind of an enticement to go to that next rate. So not only are you getting a little more greener, but you're also creating this fund to create
yeah,
other projects.
Yep.
with it. So maybe that's, people might buy into it too.
Hmm.
If we were interested in having an objective that it overall was a net positive. Would you say sell it or market it as you're helping offset municipal expenses?
net positive, meaning it's still lower than the default rate.
No,
Or-
over time, once it's paid off, it generates revenue for the city. It's a net positive.
Oh, the project, whatever project you
Project
fund,
is-
got it.
So
Yeah.
if we used a couple of mils on the default rate. To eventually turn into a revenue generator for the city,
Mhm.
you're offsetting, municipal overhead. Just brainstorming,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a saleable proposition.
more so than.
Mhm.
Right. And a couple mils, again, I think if you stay under the default rate too, it's also seems like it would be less of a challenge you're still saving.
I personally don't see the difference between doing that, adding 0.1 cent to the default rate. And what we do with water sewer to fund, capital projects. I mean, we fund capital projects by essentially increasing taxation slightly. You know, that's what you do. You decide how many capital projects you need to fund, and then that helps you set the rate. And so we have all kinds of funds that we have set up in addition to just the general capital budget, like leave it termination fund and all these funds that help stabilize our rate. So if we think about it as is the same way that we do funding for the budget in general, it seems entirely reasonable, I would think. That's my.
Yeah. I mean, if you said that rather than take out a lot of debt and then add that to your tax bill, we're gonna gradually build a fund as we did with sewer plant, for example.
This just happens to be a really tough year, though. I think
Yeah.
that we're not gonna,
Yeah,
some of us are valuations more than double. And
we have valuation shock. Yeah, no question.
yeah, it's gonna be a little tough.
Ben?
I just wanted to maybe pull a thread there. I think that when we were talking earlier about if it's just an annual expense, that's one thing versus going in the capital plan. Seems like there's a couple of different business models we could pursue if we wanted to develop it ourselves, maybe outsource the construction, et cetera, but do the finance aspect of it ourselves. That's one thing where we probably need to go on the capital plan or have some kind of upfront funding source. Whereas we had someone in, what was it, 12 months ago, where it was more of a turnkey approach and it was just an end expense. They took care of everything, kept all the value and just, gave us a really attractive rate that ultimately, turned out for us. And obviously they're making some money in that deal and, there's some trade-offs associated with that. But as we continue to explore that, I would suggest we consider different business models and maybe try to hone in on which one maybe makes more sense for the city.
I think
Right.
that's revision as well.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Just a different.
Are you talking about for the landfill potential? Or,
We had someone come in and just talk to us about solar generally.
Yes.
oh, okay, no
Community
matter
solar.
where the
Wanted to use
availability was, yeah,
municipal net metering credit
yep,
as a funding approach, and they would have done everything, put up the capital. They built the system,
and the
administered it,
feasibility, figured it out.
soup to nuts turnkey, and then all we had to do was sign the dotted line. And if,
Yeah.
if it was an offset to our rates, ultimately it was a net benefit for us.
Yeah, of course,
But maybe we left a little bit of value on the table to make it worth their while.
yeah,
So thinking about which approach makes sense for us might be a consideration if we want to extract the maximum amount of value, but do more work.
Yeah.
Versus maybe have some things be a little bit more taken care of us and we don't have to put up the money or go through certain processes like
Right.
finding the interconnection study or whatnot.
we did
What-
an interview with the city of Lebanon to talk a little bit about their experience and picking a model like that, and what we heard from them was that they definitely preferred the ownership model. The difference between their city and our city is they had a dedicated energy manager who was able to research all this. We do not have that resource, so I think it's a valid point.
And I think the big difference is that once the system is paid off, keep all the revenue, or does the other company that you worked with?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask David, you know, why did you decide to bond and pay for the system? If you look at their pro forma, once the bond is paid off, they have a very nice income stream. That,
It's 20 years. I'm surprised it's that long.
And
Before they're
municipal
not
finance is
positive.
Probably attractive relative to corporate finance in
Yeah.
terms of rates.
right. Now, Bo, they just do a lease. They didn't do any of the ownership, but they negotiated with the developer. If you want to develop, they've got a huge parcel of land. If you want to develop that and make money off that, we want you to install rooftop solar on our buildings, our municipal buildings. So that was another negotiation tactic that they did. Obviously, the large array and scale is attractive to them. So they negotiated the rooftop stuff as part of the deal.
Do you know when our municipal contract comes up? Is it this year that our municipal contract is up again for our purchase for electricity for the city?
I don't know.
This year or next?
I think it's next year.
It was, yeah, it's a multi-year.
I'm just thinking it would be nice to
So it's
have
3 years.
that number,
It's a 3-year.
whatever that it would help us better evaluate what would work best for us.
Options,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I remember when we talked to the guy in Lebanon, I looked up in just the budget lines for electricity, including sewer and water. It was around 2 million, I think, 1.5 million.
I thought it was closer to 3, actually. But a big chunk of that was the wastewater treatment
Yeah.
system. I can't remember the breakouts though. I'll see if I can find it.
It's
Yeah,
not,
you
it
did
was not a
research.
small number.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, amateur city councilor math, looking at a budget, so.
The wastewater, I think Pierce Island is like $36,000 a month or something.
That's about.
Yeah, because this city staff just pulled numbers for NREL. And I was like, wow, that's a big, that's a big electric bill.
12-cent rate or something? Maybe. I don't remember.
8,
Is it 8? Is that low? My goodness.
it's 8.
Tells you how much we're consuming.
Tom, do you know if CPC and H is to the point where they're doing municipal contracts?
They can do a contract for 1 year now.
Yeah.
So it's better
Yeah.
than 6 months.
Yeah, I think they bought some hydropower from somewhere in the state.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, although I don't have the deep. They didn't talk about that.
There was some passing talk about hydropower. But that year-long rate is a big benefit if the municipality is gonna do it. Because the uncertainty of the shorter terms. Problem.
Even a year, I think might be tough. Here, right? We were on a 3-year rate.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be tough to beat the 3-year rate that a broker can give us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember asking DPW, shouldn't we look at community power for the city? Peter said, can you do 8 cents? So it's
Pretty good deal.
And the one other thing on the, if you hired someone, would you want to keep all the renewable energy? Or would you sell those credits? 'Cause a lot of those contracts, that's why they want to do it too, to sell the RECs.
The X are selling the Rex, it looks like.
What's that?
Yeah, so
Exeter
they're
selling
performing-
their RECs?
They're selling the Rex.
Yeah.
I don't know why. They're not worth a lot.
Aren't they worth
versus,
enough
like,
to
median income.
contractors? No, they're not worth a lot.
Yeah, no. $35 megawatt.
$35 a meg.
No,
a megawatt.
lot of municipal
Megawatt,
buildings,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour. There you go. Same.
He's ghosted us. What's the committee's pleasure? We don't have a guest. We want to hear from Stephanie about these.
Hmm. Anything from Enra?
But
So I provided a draft. I realized in addition to sending out the pinwheels, we needed a letter to go with it that said, thank you, and it's wonderful that you opted up, and please share this information with your friends and neighbors. We have the CPC postcards that we can put in the envelope as well. And I have added on your behalf a blurb to the city newsletter last week and this week saying, if you've opted up, please let us know so we can thank you. Because I did inquire with CPCNH through Scott, who does our Green Challenge survey, and it's very difficult to get names and addresses out of Eversource for privacy reasons. So if we can get people to tell us, we can start sending these out. We've heard from 2 people, 3 actually. One wrote about his neighbors opting up as well. So that's working. And the letter, as you see, and please give me feedback, says, you know, hopefully this will cause people to ask you, what's this all about? How can I get one?
It's great, Stephanie. Thank you.
Very inexpensive, like a tenth of the cost of yard signs and green power, as I think Herb pointed
We
out.
generate electricity from this. Right,
I will trust the physicists to figure out.
wire it up.
It's the last farmer's market happened already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Too bad 'cause it would've been closed.
winter's markets are starting up, so we could
Oh.
talk to the Seacoast Consortium does that.
Do we have a winter market in Portsmouth?
No, it's in, they
Rollinsford?
alternate in either Stratham Middle School or the market in Rollinsford, Wentworth Greenhouses in Rollinsford.
We're not competing with those towns, right? Nice.
So
I think we should have it signed Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee and all the names.
Stephanie, just to the letter here, just one issue that I wanted to bring up. And I'm not sure if that's a typo or what was the intention. In the second paragraph, it says all Portsmouth Community Power customers at the default Granite basic level receive power created from at least 24.3% renewables. And then it says wind, solar, hydro, or nuclear power. Now, nuclear power is not a renewable energy source. So it's listed there as if it was.
I will double check that because I think that's what CPCNH lists in its
Well,
graphic.
if we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, it wouldn't be, but it's not renewable because you need to get new fuel all the time, right?
And that would be the definition would be a statewide RPS definition.
Right,
not a
right, it is.
CPCNH.
The renewable portfolio standard from the state,
Right,
there is one,
Right.
and it does not include nuclear as
Right.
renewable.
Correct that, thank you.
Because underneath it, it says, or you can have greater proportion than these renewables, but refers back to that, so.
And the latest is that we're 0.1% behind New Market. Request for opt-ups
Through September.
through September. So we were in the lead.
October.
We still can't help yet. We still can't opt up yet.
Well, I was gonna ask, and maybe Tom or somebody else could tell me this. I got this strange email yesterday, I think, from Community Power regarding my solar energy. And it's like a full page with explanations left and right, telling me if I want credit for my solar, I can do it in summer and spring, but I can't do it in the autumn and the winter. I'd have to go back to Eversource. My understanding is, the last time I talked to the people at Community Power Coalition, and later on to Eversource, not Eversource, yeah, Eversource, is that if I have solar net metering 1.0, meaning it's installed before 2017, then I can get credit if I switch over to community power
Right.
for full, everything. But this letter is so confusing, it doesn't sound like I get full credit unless I switch back and forth between community power and Eversource every 6 months, which makes no sense. It's
Right.
just too confusing. So I don't know if there's any clarification on that. And the reason I ask is because I have a friend of mine up in, I think it's in Lebanon, who is already doing this with Solar 1.0, and he gets full credit through community power.
Well, we got the Mark Bollinger, the guy from CPCNH, wrote back a lengthy email and said the same thing. So,
Yeah.
and yours is
I got his
1.0
email too, telling me that it should work.
and
I
your
called-
array is
Yeah,
pre-17.
2015, yeah. So I called Eversource about that and told them that. And they said, okay, we're gonna switch you over in your next billing cycle, which would be this coming cycle. I haven't gotten the bill yet,
Oh,
so I
alright.
don't know. I'm waiting for that to see.
Will you tell
Have
me?
I- Yeah, I will, as soon as I
Thank
see.
you.
I don't want to tell anybody unless it actually
Then
happens.
I'll get my windmill.
It does take forever. It takes 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I will definitely,
Yay.
I know other people who are in the same boat as we are.
Yeah,
And
we should get the word
yeah,
out.
we should get credit there, yeah.
You can get a pinwheel.
Ours. Yeah.
I had one question on the letter. The second paragraph. The second sentence, by opting up, you tell Eversource to find and purchase power with greater proportions of those renewables. I think it could be a little confusing to our average customer because we talk about community power and then we're talking about Eversource and the, you know, and then in the next paragraph, we use Eversource again. I think they're like, wait, do I have Eversource? Do I have community?
A sentence that explains that the power that flows through your wires is all the same power.
Right.
So it's that issue that we've wrestled with before about explaining by opting up, you're not getting a different flow, you're getting the same power, but you're encouraging the supplier, i.e. Eversource. So
It's not Eversource though. That's the
Yeah, I
point here is we'd be telling CPCNH to go buy more,
Yeah, I think
not Eversource.
the generic sentence would be, it helps your neighbors, it's basically you're increasing the demand for renewable energy sources in
Yeah.
our community.
simple.
And I think you
Yeah,
keep it
yeah.
at
I
that.
think that's enough.
Eversource is just distribution, they're not supply.
And then for nuclear, I checked it, it's not nuclear.
Okay.
So you can leave it at wind, solar, and small scale hydro. Cause Hydro Quebec wouldn't qualify. There's also like existing biomass methane, but I think that's a mouthful.
In the third paragraph, then to take out Eversource.
Yeah.
Press the state to move in the direction of I mean, you can almost just remove it.
Remove Eversource, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
We've been out of it.
That way we just don't confuse people.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
people then will start like, wait, who, what, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people I've had conversations with lately don't understand how it works. So you're
Yeah.
trying to have
Yeah.
this conversation, but no, your community power is your supplier and, so just don't want anyone to.
Yeah, and since we're telling people we are the supplier, not Eversource.
Yeah.
So when we tell them we can get Eversource to do more supplying of, no, Eversource is not the one doing it. We're doing it. So.
Great, thank you.
But you got feedback? Any other feedback for Stephanie? This is a nice little,
Oh, yeah, wait,
That's
thank
great.
you.
nice to see them popping up around.
So cute.
Nice job.
This is better than getting your yarn pig flamingoed for sure.
Duct tape them to your bicycle.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you for that. Herb, any update on the Enro?
So we had a target date of November 1st, the city to provide data that NREL had requested. So I worked with city staff. We got that, all the data documentation to them. And now they're just taking a couple days to go through it. And then likely they'll set up some meetings with us and ask a few questions. So we provided them with wind data for 3 different locations, power bills for 3 different locations. There was some other documentation they were asking about, diesel generation, backup generation. They wanted maps of all 3 locations, so whole packet of information like that that we packaged together and sent over to them. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you for your diligence.
yeah.
What we got.
It's gonna be like Christmas when they come back and share ideas.
We'll see. We'll see.
How many of you had a chance to go to Tracy's button-up seminar?
Sorry.
It was good. Thank you for doing that. That was great.
Sure, I think there were only maybe 3 people that were potential users, and we had technical problems with the Zoom, so I think we would have had more, but good start.
No.
No. If 1 or 2 people do something with their house.
If it got a little bit colder, it probably would have brought more people out.
Stay, we're on the wait list for next year as well. The library would like to do it also, so.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good library. It'd be great. to Run that. It's a regular program.
Yeah. Did we record it at all? Do you know?
We started to, but the recording didn't.
Yeah.
Doing all these wonderful workshops, and I just keep thinking. Put them up. So that people can watch
It's a
them.
good call,
Yeah.
Yeah, we did send around, there was one town that had done it maybe last year that we sent a recording around for that. but-
Because I mean, there's huge value for residents to do the energy audit. They qualify. I went back and I put in my data into their little system and I didn't.
Even
my-
recently, 'cause I know they
Yeah.
said they changed it.
Yeah,
It should
my
be-
consumption just isn't. For my square footage, the consumption is reasonably efficient, so I don't qualify for the.
Run it up.
I know.
Yeah, just have fat on.
That's what he said, if you're.
He did, he said if you wanna
Yeah.
get it.
It's
yeah.
that low, it hurts you, yeah.
It was like a little gauge and it does the calculation and the arrow's moving and then it like stopped where I didn't qualify.
I had no problem getting it. Hopefully it doesn't anymore, because I
Yeah.
did all the work.
That
Yeah.
would all work, yeah.
Oh, nice.
It did, I had a downstairs bathroom that would free, if it got really cold,
Mhm.
I'd have to either leave it running a drip or thaw it out in the morning. It never burst. But they came in, did all their air sealing, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot more comfortable, which, it's hard to get people to buy into unless they're really uncomfortable, then you have to go to
Yeah,
the.
incident, it cuts down on problems with mice too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to have it.
That's not really-
Additional benefits,
Homes that
Oh, yeah.
would qualify and the financial
Absolutely.
benefits are wonderful.
It's
Even
amazing.
new homes.
Yeah.
You know, they skimped on the installation.
Yeah,
A lot of those.
he gave some great stories about that, like new, fancy, especially the really architecturally designed ones. You'd go up the wall to here and then it was a gap like 2 feet. and
Oh, no.
That's right, and the heat
Yeah.
is dumping out.
So obvious when you can, like, I had an old house, my last old house didn't have any insulation in the walls except for like old newspaper that,
Yep,
had
yep,
been dropped
yep.
in the 1800s. And you could touch the walls and they were freezing all
Yeah.
winter. In my house now, somebody insulated it at some point. The walls are warm. I use very little heat.
I will say our city inspectors don't let you get away with not insulating anything within an inch of its life now. I learned that, with
Good.
very expensive
Good.
spray foam bills, so we can be proud of that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I had the similar experience that you did, Kate, then, and I had the complete energy audit, including infrared cameras. So they brought those in and they looked at the different walls and there were 2 walls that they were saying, we don't think there's any insulation in these walls. And so and this is like 1930s house. So they just drill a hole in the side of the wall there and they blow in the foam insulation and wow, and then they go back and check again with thermal cameras. And you can see all of a sudden it's a different story.
Just be careful because it will settle. And then
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
the
it's
gap.
true,
and then
that'll
you
be,
have
that
to-
could be,
yeah.
bad. Yeah, that's right.
You have to top it off again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could continue discussion long as you want, but
I missed one meeting. Peter was gonna have the energy efficiency consultant.
yes, we
We
can.
have,
Yeah,
we brought them
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was the meeting I missed.
So much nerdy detail.
Report
Yeah, me too.
on the webpage.
Well, are they,
Yeah.
did they finish all that work already
Still
or?
going on.
Cause I'm still interested in seeing Spinnaker Point looked at too.
So this energy efficiency person was just for this building or which?
No.
building?
I don't know, I
He
wasn't.
focused a lot on.
No, none of us were at.
This
this
one
was
was the
you.
one they focused on,
This whole,
but yeah.
This building.
Okay.
mostly
Yeah.
this building though, which used to be a hospital.
Yeah.
Right. So this building has one set of pipes for coolant. Cool.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
another set of pipes for heat.
Yeah.
But in the summer, the cool water pipes have no insulation around, so they all condense.
Condensation.
Rust. I see.
So that both systems are fighting each other.
Mm.
That's why we need new HVAC desperately for the whole building. It's very expensive, but it would solve a lot of problems.
They did an audit and like a typical audit, they made recommended measures.
So they're a
Performance- I think
performance
it's a performance
contracting
contract,
company.
so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Finance it.
we haven't
like-
decided to, I mean, the city hasn't decided to use them yet, right? They're gonna make a,
I don't know, I'm not. involved.
no.
I think the city's already been using it. This is.
They had a performance contract before, but this would be a new one. So I think it's a different company. I don't think we have one with EEI. We had one with like
I
Johnson
thought-
Controls.
Peter told us we had one, that we had a contract with an energy performance company like an ESCO.
Yeah. they
That-
said
I
they've
thought it
done
was
the schools.
expiring.
They did.
Right,
Yeah.
Harbor
yeah, yeah.
and
That's the Johnson
Arrow.
Controls one.
New Franklin.
Oh, Little Harbor, that might be
Yeah. that was-
people that were here.
The same, yeah, the folks that were here have, this is not the first building, city.
They did, I know they did Little Harbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They've done
But that was my recollection as well. They were still preparing. proposals.
For this building. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and their person said it's the most complicated.
Although
proposal
from an
I've ever had
energy
to do.
savings perspective, they threw out a lot that I think it's gonna be interesting. They were pointing out the lack of ventilation. And what that can be a smokescreen for when it comes to efficiency is, well, when we add all the ventilation, you use up all your savings. Your bills could go up, but we're saving you a ton because now it's well ventilated. So
Right.
you know, that makes it really hard. It's not like they come in, do all their work, and now the city's bills drop, you know, they may not move.
But isn't that the purpose of having a performance contract is you're paying a reduction on your energy bill? For the
No,
baseline you
no.
go higher.
It's not a reduction on your energy bill. They have a really fancy calculation to determine savings, but it's not your bill.
It's whatever they determine the baseline should be.
Right, and it might be the baseline for the chiller, it might be the baseline for a particular piece of equipment, but when it comes to your bill,
Yeah.
But
there's
doesn't,
no guarantee for your
doesn't
bill.
New Hampshire Save have programs for commercial municipal buildings as well?
Yeah, they would, but they'd be pretty limited. It
Really?
would be like equipment replacement. So if you replace the chiller, you might get so much per ton. But like with what's needed here, it would be pretty limited.
Hmm.
Yeah,
One thing I was impressed with was they fully understand any state and federal funding opportunity.
yeah,
And
yeah, so they will get some New
Yeah.
Hampshire saves money.
Yeah, because the guy at the New Hampshire Save, he was saying there's other programs coming down the pike. Didn't he say that, Tracy?
There are, and I listened to a webinar a month or so ago, and there is quite a lot of money slated for that. One is the heat pump program, and then the other is weatherization. I don't know if the election's gonna change that. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. But
What about the federal funding that we went after as a part of the infrastructure bill? Is this, not we, the state? Do we know where that's gone?
I think those are the programs they were talking about. So
Okay.
they've been awarded. My understanding is that they're trying to get them out before January 20th or whatever. And then the funds will be expended. However, some programs may have to be administered by like, someone in the White House or the administration, so they may make it more difficult to manage those programs. So
Are they all state administered? Or do we have, like, with relief funds, we had some direct to city administered funds that we could get. It didn't have to be funneled through the state.
the ones that I listened to, the grants, and I think it's 68 million in total, were going through the state. I think there are some projects that municipalities could then apply to the state for, is my understanding, but those funds were going through the state.
I'm curious. I'm wondering if the state, the executive council will accept the funds.
Yes. For sure.
I would think they would.
Yeah.
I think they would. We didn't approve the minutes, did we, Stan? Has anyone had a chance to read the minutes of October 2nd? Any changes? Motion to approve them?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Put those in the record. Any other business for the committee? I will try to find Mr. Sharples and.
Track him.
Please don't.
Maybe you should mention that if you come to a meeting, you could get a.
You get a
windmill.
pinwheel.
He could have got a windmill if he had.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
He snoozes. he
Snooze, you
loses.
lose, yeah.